We'll start in 1 minute time, but it's great to see that we have audience from different parts of the world. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar to discuss on the affordability of agricultural technologies for smallholder farmers. This webinar is organized by IFC in partnership with the World Bank Group with the support of the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD. So thank you, welcome. My name is Misrach Fissaha. I work in agribusiness advisory at IFC, and I will be moderating our discussion in this topic today. So I'd first like to start by thanking all of you for taking the time to join us today. So it's been good to have some introductions already, but please continue to share with us where you're joining us from, introduce yourselves to us, and share your thoughts and reflections throughout the session using the chat box. Having said that, I'm here today with three panelists, Abraham Andreas, Jagdish Mahajan, and Dr. Venkat Majro. I would like to say thank you to our panelists. Thank you for taking the time and for agreeing to share your lessons and experiences on the affordability of AgTech for smallholders. So I will start by briefly introducing our panelists. Maybe they can add a bit more before they go into their presentations later on. Abraham Andreas is a seasoned Ethiopian agripreneur. He has recently launched a digital agriculture platform called Lersha. Lersha facilitates access to inputs, mechanization, and advisory services for smallholder farmers in Ethiopia. Our second panelist, Jagdish, is from Joytech Fresh Ethiopia. Joytech grows flowers, fresh herbs, and they also engage in propagation of seedlings and plants. They do a lot of work in Ethiopia, and currently they are also engaging with IFC in piloting a digital information management system for development agents. So with Jagdish, we will get the private sector's view on the affordability of AgTech for smallholders they work with. Dr. Venkat is the CEO of SourceTrace, AgTech company that has done a lot of work in over 35 countries across the globe, and they've managed to engage over 1 million farmers with the various technology solutions they've developed so far. So with these wonderful panelists, I believe the next 1 hour is going to be very informative. We will have a question and answer session after we first hear from the panelists. But again, please don't wait until the end. Share your thoughts, your questions, your reflections with us throughout the session using the chat box. We'll be happy to keep you engaged. So let's get to the first discussion topic. The first discussion topic is, in your view, how do you see the use of technology among smallholder farmers? And what factors affect the adoption of technology by smallholder farmers? I will first give the floor to Dr. Venkat, then Abraham will follow, then Jagdish will follow. Each of you have 3 minutes. You can start by briefly introducing the work you do in this space. So Dr. Venkat, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Masrach and IFC and World Bank for organizing this seminar and giving us an opportunity. My name is Venkat Maraja. I'm the CEO of SourceTrace, based out of Boston. And our company basically developed a digital platform for agriculture and food value chain, digitized all the way from farm to fork. We have primarily focused on a lot of smallholder farmer agriculture, and we are in customers in 32 countries. And we are digitized so far more than 1.5 million farmers and 350 crops, more than 350 crops. So we have some good footprint, and among this, almost 60% of our work is in Africa. We work in like 15 different countries in Africa. So with that background, the smallholder farmers have almost 450 to 500 million of them in the world, and they produce almost 70% of the all the food we eat. So they become a very vital part of the ecosystem, and there are a lot of challenges with the smallholder farmer agriculture, coming from the small holdings to lack of access to quality inputs, lack of credit, and proper market linkage, and some level of advisory services, right? I mean, all these things are a big challenge. So, and then, by virtue of farmers, they're all remotely located, right? Far away from urban centers, and communication and those other logistics challenges are also there. So, the mobile technologies that started really changing the world has a profound impact on the bottom of the pyramid. I mean, no other technology in the history of mankind has really, accelerated the penetration, as well as especially when it comes to the people at the bottom of the pyramid. It enabled a very profound impact on, and then in many sectors, and agriculture is definitely one of them. So the leveraging this connectivity and digital power that you could carry wherever you want, as opened up so many opportunities to build solutions and applications to make agriculture sustainable, profitable, traceable, equitable, and profitable, right? So those are some of the things. So we can talk a lot more, but there are, sitting in a Boston or Addis Ababa, building a mobile application is very different from when you have to work in an environment where these field staff have to go off the grid for 3 to 4 weeks at a time, right? So there are so many challenges. What makes sense? How do we build? We can talk more details, and how do you, the most important thing is how to bring these technologies to a small farmers. On an average, we're talking about holding a 2 hectares and illiterate to semi-literate farmers. How do you bring this latest technology to these farmers? So we have, I mean, I can share a lot of experiences. I think we'll be talking more, but that's a context I want to set, in the initial remarks. Thank you, Emra.
Thank you, Venkat. Abraham, please continue. I think you're on mute, Abraham. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Raj. My name is Abraham Andreas, and I'm Managing Director of Green Agro Solutions PLC. Green Agro Solutions PLC has been working with smallholder farmers for the last 10 years in different agricultural value chains, including agriculture, farming, food provision, also mechanization service provision to small farmers, mainly in RC, Valley, and Goja area. So I understand the technological aspect of the AgTech for smallholder farmers, and leveraging our experience in the last 10 years, and also a market platform that we studied in 2018, we realized there is a need for digital agriculture. Ethiopia, as one of the youngest population in Africa, we need to use the opportunity coming from a digital agriculture. So we decided to build a digital platform, and we named it Lersha. Lersha is an Amharic word. It means for agriculture, and that reflects our desire to provide farm needs for smallholder farmers through innovation. And this innovation includes a mobile application, a call center, and a Lersha agent. Lersha agent is our proudest part of the platform, which represents a young agricultural graduate from university but unemployed, were recruited and trained to narrow the technology and the literacy gap of a farmer in a rural area. Being said that, why these smallholder farmers are not using technology? For our international audience, to give you the Ethiopian context of smallholder farmers are farmers with an average of 1 hectare or less, and mainly dependent on rain-fed agriculture, also with a low literacy rate. But they are very hardworking, and they are feeding the entire nation. So to mention some of the reasons why they reject technology, one is the absence of technologies that really create value for farmers. You can't convince a farmer with promotion or with marketing. Rather, they want to witness by seeing. They want to believe when they see a value created for their neighborhood farmer. I understand there are many efforts that are done by development partners, government, and also other institutions to pilot AgTech in some area, but projects usually, phase out in 3 or 5 years time, and that's what created farmers, whenever the ag technology comes, if it's not sustainable, if it's not adding value, they also reject the next coming technology. Also the ecosystem. The cost of internet, the cost of communication is very expensive, and also with the low quality. When we talk about AgTech, we're not talking about Addis or some big towns in Ethiopia. We are talking about a small Kabyle found far away from Addis. And when you develop a technology in Addis with 4G technology, it absolutely works. But when you go to rural area, the internet connection is very low. It's also very expensive. But also lack of access with payments, with logistics, and the lack of infrastructure is also making the AgTech very expensive for farmers, also from a developer side. The main point is the literacy and the technology gap. Our experience in the last many years gave us an opportunity to closely interact with farmers. And these farmers, because they have low literacy rate, what we did in our platform is we designed a Lersha agent modality, where the Lersha agent serves a connection point. And the last point is a low adoption rate. Farmers will not absorb a technology in a moment. Rather, they need time to see and believe. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Abraham. Jagdish?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anisraj. Thank you very much, IFC and World Bank, for giving us such a wonderful opportunity to communicate and to coordinate this session. My name is Jagdish Mahajan. I'm the Business Development Manager for Joytech PLC. Joytech PLC is basically a leading propagation company working for small-scale farmers, mid-scale farmers, and the large-scale farmers all across Ethiopia. So if we are talking about a small-scale farmer and today's title of affordability of the AgTech agriculture technology, I wanted to emphasize on one thing, that the small scale agriculture will continue to play a key role in the African agriculture. So what we are working at as of today, that we have more than 10,000 farmers that we are working with them as a small scale farmers to uplift and to capacity building. We are advisory services. We are trying to disseminate the advisory services, and to help these advisory services, we need to have a platform, the one which we are talking about, what Mr. Venkat is mentioning, what Mr. Abraham is mentioning. So this is the platform that we are also working in parallel with IFC. So I would like to mention that this small scale farming community has the characteristics of diffusion of the technology relates to relative advantage. What is the advantage? Complexity, affordability is one of the things that we need to consider, that what will be the affordability of the technology that the small scale farmer will adopt it. So as a context of Ethiopia, for the international audience, it's very important that we are working quite hard with the government, with non-government organizations. As a public-private partnership, we are working, and there are government organizations coming forward to make these things happening. So we are in the quite a good pace of taking this technology forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, our panelists, for briefly describing the work that you do in this space, and also for pointing out the level of adoption of agricultural technologies by smallholder farmers. As you mentioned rightly, it's quite limited, and there are a number of factors that affect their adoption. Infrastructure is one thing, literacy is one thing, and as Abraham mentioned also, it takes time. You have to prove and demonstrate to them the value that comes with the technology. So thank you for sharing your views on this. Now we will have one quick poll. Let's see what the internet penetration rate in Ethiopia is. So we will have one poll. You'll be able to see it on the screen in a moment. There you go. Okay. It looks like about 45, 46%, the majority is voting for 15%. Okay, let's end the polling. Most of you have got the right answer. It's yes, 15%. So indeed, we have quite a long way to go. So let's move to the second discussion topic. The second discussion topic is more directed for the technology developers. So to what extent do you take affordability into account when you develop technologies for smallholder farmers? So we will start with Abraham, followed by Venkat, then Jagdish will reflect on this. Abraham, over to you. You each have 3 minutes. You're on mute again, Abraham.
I think from a leadership perspective, when we select a technology for smallholder farmers, this, we need to validate, we need to check whether that technology really works or not is the main thing that the developer has to do in their own lab, in their own area. But regarding the smallholder farmers, I think first the developer needs to have the passion to work with the small farmers. Because it's not like e-commerce in town or technology that's promoting in town. We're talking about the literacy, the infrastructure, and all other challenges in order with the low adoption. A developer needs to have a passion to work with the smallholder farmers. In our case, we have worked for the last 10 years with smallholder farmers. We try to understand the points of the smallholder farmers. So with the nurture, we are trying to digitalize what we were doing conventionally. So that passion is very important when you work with the smallholder farmers. The other is to understand the context. I think Jagdish mentioned earlier, technology somewhere in West Africa, success in West Africa does not mean it's a success in Ethiopia. We need to understand the context of smallholder farmers. I want to out loud say that context is the key. In agricultural technology or in adopting a technology, understanding the context is the key. If you look at RC, if you look at Bale or Afar, these areas, some of them are, for example, in RC, many technologies and innovations were adopted in the past time. So farmers are somehow exposed to these technologies. And if you go to some Bale, they produce multiple times in a year. So understanding that context is very important. The other is also the demand. Is there any demand? Is there any problem to be solved or an opportunity to be capitalized? You can come up with a very good technology, but if it is not sustainable, if it is not deliver value to the smallholder farmers, then it will not exist in the market. So we have to also check the demand side. Also the affordability and the literacy. Good technology does not mean that will satisfy a farmer. We need to consider how are we going to provide, in what pricing system are we going to charge a price. In our case, our system is more blended. You don't see that digital service price, alone. Rather, it is blended either in a farm input or in a mechanization. So I think these four factors, the passion of the developer, also understanding the context, checking whether the demand or not, also considering affordability and literacy. But in our case, Lersha platform has English language, Amharic, and Afan Oromo. Doing that also will attract more farmers to use the technology.
Thank you, Abraham. Dr. Venkat, please continue.
Yeah, so given the such a low margins and very difficult, financial outcomes for the smallholder farmers has been very challenging economically, right? So introducing technology costs money. So how do we challenge this? I mean, while there is it's a big problem, at the same time, it is also, involved with cost. So the kind of models we evolved, the one and the foremost important thing is given the size of the smallholder farmers. Average holding is 2 hectares, and average smallholder farmer is illiterate to semi-literate. So there is neither scale nor sophistication to bring these technologies to bear at the grassroots level, right? It becomes very challenging. So one of the important things we work with is we need to create that scale. Means you need to aggregate in some fashion, right? And then you also need to create a sophisticated agency that needs to basically harness these technologies and bringing it to grassroots level that could be absorbed or make an impact on the ground. So those are the two important things. And then the way we do that is because that's the only way you can make these technologies very affordable. So we work with organizations like cooperatives, farmer producer companies, agri businesses, small and big, government agencies, some financial institutions, and development organizations. So the common denominator among all these is they're all working with the groups of farmers, right? So you create a scale by aggregating. I mean, when I mentioned all these different types, they all have probably different services they're providing to the farmers, right? And then you also create this management of the cooperative or agribusiness operational team. They are more sophisticated than the farmers. They're, we most of the time, the kind of a field staff extension worker we target is a high school graduate, right, in developing countries, and that type of thing too. Some management who are a lot more sophisticated, right? So that's how we impart these technologies. So by creating such a scale, by virtue, not only you're able to bring, but also at a very, very affordable price. The last thing is you don't want to burden the farmer with this. It has to be built into some of the services, or built into somebody's doing a contract farming, or it's a cooperative cost structure, or a government services. So that's how we are able to bring and bring these technologies to bear at the grassroots levels.
Thank you, Dr. Venkat. Jagdish, please go ahead.
Yeah. So coming back to the small scale farmers again, technology, bringing dissemination of technology is very important. Now, how to do it, that makes sense. Now, for example, we started. Now we are talking about an improved seed and seed usage. Okay, improved seed and seed usage. Initially, the adoption of improved seed and seed usage in Ethiopia was very, very low, because as Mr. Venkat mentioned, that it cost. Because when you bring in something which is in one step higher, it costs. So we need to see the affordability. So what we did initially, that we did like apple to apple check. It means the conventional practice and the improved practice we have showed by demonstrating to the farmers in different places all across the country to see, and we have proven to the farmers that how this technology is beneficiary for them. For example, use of improved seed and seedling brings higher productivity for them, which brings higher income, which brings higher trade for them. So once you prove that one, then the technology goes forward. Now on the affordability, government organizations are also taking part in it. And like farm service centers are established in Ethiopia. And if we are talking about for international attendees here, Ethiopia is a developing country, and here a lot of organizations, for example, Agriculture Transforming Agency is one of the organizations which is setting up a farm service centers. So now there are questions coming in that how the technology or dissemination of the knowledge will happen through the technology, affordability. So government is also taking a part in it. Government is also allocating a budget for it. But again, how effectively it will be implemented in the down to the farmers, that is more concern. So improving the technology is, I think, it's a crucial thing that we are trying to emphasize on it. And I think bringing the technology to the farmers on a multilingual language is very important. That Abraham has mentioned that it's in, because Ethiopia is, the literacy wise and the affordability wise and the complexity wise, it is a vast country. It's a big country, whereas the rural areas are quite a remote places. So we have been advising for the government also for the WLA system, that is wireless local loop system, which can give like a central place where farmer can come in the morning and get the information. What is the market prices in Addis, or what is the market price in Avasa, or what is the market price in Bardar. So these are the market linkages or something. So the information dissemination should be a central place. That initially we cannot give everybody a smartphone or everybody in the hands of the people and start using it. But we have to start somewhere, somehow, for disseminating of the knowledge by allocating a central place where the knowledge will be properly disseminated. So this is what my perspective.
Thank you, Jagdish. Thank you, all three of you, for sharing your thoughts on this. Indeed, trying to make technologies affordable for smallholder farmers implies difficult financial outcomes and low margins. But you've also pointed out a couple of things that you work with. Abraham has mentioned passion, having passion for the work that you do, understanding the context, making sure that there is demand, it's demand driven, and also blending the technology with other needs of farmers. It could be advisory or other farm inputs. Dr. Venkat has also pointed out the need to create scale to make the technologies affordable, and also to engage multiple stakeholders, whether from the private sector, farmer organizations, or other non-government entities. And then we leverage the resources that would be available with them. Okay, having said that, I think we're ready for the second poll, right? So you'll see a second poll question on the screen now. Please go ahead and make your choice. You know, we have limited resources, limited infrastructure and connectivity in Ethiopia, but ATA has been using this hotline, farmers hotline, since 2014. And how many farmers do you think they have reached so far, given, you know, all the limitations that we have at the moment? This figure is, by the way, from June 2018, I think. So it's not even the latest one. Okay. Let's end the poll now, I think. Unfortunately, most of you didn't get the right answer. It's we had 3.6 million registered farmers, and around 30.3 million calls were made to this hotline. So even with the limited resources, you see, we've been able to reach that many number of smallholders. Okay, so the last discussion topic for the panelists then, you know, going forward, how can we make AgTech more affordable and more accessible to smallholder farmers? Like what approach, what business models can be used? What's your view on this? So this time, let me start with you, Jagdish. Dr. Venkat will follow, and then Abraham will be third. You each have 3 minutes. Jagdish, over to you.
Yeah, here it's very important that the private sector plays a big role here. Now, I believe, because I'm from a private sector, and depending on the situation, with the current situation here, private sector can play a big role here. For example, private companies like agro-processing industries, those who needs the raw material and everything, they do have a financial capacity to implement such technology and to train the farmers. So for example, you know, like a contract farming, for example, a company who needs like tomatoes or pepper or something as a raw material, and they need to make a contract farming because they cannot produce everything by themselves. So contract farming and having a network of farmers to link them together, this private sector is making a big difference and allocating like in TOT, training of trainers, and also to the farmers, and getting a data exchange also is very important. So because we need to know the private sector will be required what kind of production estimations are going to come from the farm. So my perception is that private sector should play a big role here in coordination and in collaboration with the government. The private sector should play a big role to make the technology affordable for the small scale farmers, not to depend on government only to bring or non-government organizations or like a funding companies or something like that. No, I think private sector should play a role, and government should give a support to the private sector to make the things happening. Recently, I would like to mention here that Ethiopian government has recently finalized, with the help of ATA, the contract farming model. It was not before, but the contract farming model is already finalized, and it is already for 2021, it is going to be implemented. So for example, previously it was not possible. A single farmer is producing and he cannot export by himself because he don't have a capacity. So private companies like us, we can give the technical know-how and with the help of the technology that we are talking about, and get the product buyback and export it. So this is the model that it was not developed before, but the government is quite ready now with the very good model they have already proposed, and the government has sanctioned already to implement it for 2021. So contract farming and private sector should play a biggest role to make the technology take it forward, rather than waiting for the government to uh, to get the technology to reach to the farmers somehow. Here I would like to mention.
Thank you, Jagdish. Dr. Venkat, please go ahead. I think you're on mute. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I echo what Jagdish was saying. See, government has a role to make a good policy, and by most of the developing countries, whether we like it or not, the governments have a very large role in operations. Okay. In developed countries like US or Europe, you would probably have a very small agriculture department. They just make policy, and but in developing economies, they have to, because this most of the countries, it's the employment of the, even though the agriculture contributes very little to the GDP, and it's shrinking as the countries develop, but the number of people dependent on agricultural livelihood is very high, right? At least 50 or above, depending on what curve of development you are. And given that scenario, the governments are deeply involved in operationally, right from giving subsidy inputs to the loans, to extension service, to the some commodity specific purchasing for public distribution and all that. So they have a large footprint. So we cannot dismiss the government's role in the short run. So they are one of the key stakeholder, and sometimes where large deployments have been done through the government agencies only, actually. So, but given that the private sector, as more and more private sector needs to come into the agriculture, there is so many opportunities, because agriculture has value chains are so inefficient. Every inefficiency that you could remove, there is a very good business opportunity in each of the areas. So there's a large opportunity for private sector intervention. And the technologies, not only, we work with software, but there's a lot of other, mechanization and improved seeds and things like that, right? This could only be driven by largely by private sector. And so there should be a good balance and mix of these large entities. So I don't see any other way the smallholder farmers is having, it's very fancy. A lot of people think, okay, I could give a tablet to the farmer, or a smartphone. You see once in a while some big event happens somewhere, they distribute some smartphones, and then after 6 months nobody knows what happened. So it's not very sustainable. So the fact is that you still go back to what is the smallholder farmer, is the 2 hectares average. There are certain section of the farmers who are higher, but they're very small layer. But to look at average is still as 2 hectares and illiterate to similarity. How do you do this? So aggregation is the must. And in aggregation, if it better be done, if a private sector does it, it's much better. And government actually regulates, right? Government policies, and so that they do a maximum benefit to the farmers. They have ethical practices and things like that. So there is a balance that needs to be brought in. And that's the only way. And then the other important thing is there's a lot of food is now travels globe. Okay, there is a lot of conscious customers are demanding ethical practices, origin information, what kind of chemicals are being used, what kind of human right practices, sometimes the labor practice or deforestation. So when you sum up all that, there is a growing demand for making this agriculture transparent, all the way to the origin. And that actually drives basically a lot of technology deployments. So there is we can see there's a lot of demand, and I think there are a lot of things converging, okay, from private sector to consumer demand to some of the adoption of latest technologies of creating value. So we could only see a lot more acceleration in the coming years. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Venkat. Abraham, please continue.
Thank you, Ms. Raj. And I think Jagdish and Dr. Venkat touched many points, but from my side, to make AgTech more affordable and easily adopted by small environment, I think a multi-stakeholder collaboration is very important. As a private sector, I understand the role of government is irreplaceable in all countries, like in Ethiopia, where the majority of job is created in agriculture, and with that all stake, the government role is irreplaceable. But the private sector has to take a lead. But private sector with their with small capacity, it is difficult to provide technology for this large number of smallholder farmers. So that multi-stakeholder collaboration is very important. In the Lersha case, for example, we collaborated with Ministry of Agriculture, so that Ministry of Agriculture provide us data, validated data and crop extension. We partner with CIMIT, the International Wheat and Maize Improvement Center, so that we get the agro-climate advisory. And also we have a very good partnership with Green Innovation Center of GIZ, that they support the Lersha agent training, also with ICCO core date, that strengthening the malt and also the potato value chain by training more Lersha agents, and also with Commercial Bank of Ethiopia as a gateway to payment integration, and with also RC University, because RC University is interested to train more farmers. Such a multi-stakeholder will give you a strong platform to reach more farmers, which makes the platform affordable. For example, in our case, farmers, our business model, we try to build a sustainable business model, and we charge 5 to 8% commission when farmers use a farm input and mechanization. But for agroclimate advisory and for crop protection, we don't charge users, because our data is coming from Ministry of Agriculture and CIMIT. We don't charge because we take that from our partners for free, because their intention is to reach more farmers. That sustainable model with a multi-stakeholder collaboration is very important. Also, from a government side, I think the cost of internet should be very low in rural area. We need a cost reduction mechanism so that farmers and development agents use such AgTech easily. And also we need to improve the quality. The other side, I think we need a national program to create awareness. As a private sector, it is difficult to train and to create awareness for millions of farmers who are located in different regions of Ethiopia. But using like mass medias like radio, television, we need to design such a system to aware smallholder farmers on the importance of AgTech. The other is, I think, the majority of support, especially financial support, coming to this sector is taken by Western companies. I think a serious attention is needed to support local innovators. In Ethiopia, we have many, AgTech solution providers and also startups. But these startups need to be supported because they understand the context. I will say it again, context is a king. In AgTech, if you want to be successful, we need to understand. Also, collaboration is possible. When foreign technology or innovation comes to Ethiopia, it is better to integrate with a local innovator to understand the context more, because it will create more affordable. And lastly, I think we need to approach also microfinances. because microfinance, the major customer of microfinances are smallholder farmers. And because of the financial need, thousands of smallholder farmers come to the microfinance. And we can use microfinances as a gateway to reach more farmers and also to hybrid that technology with the service of microfinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you, all three panelists, for those wonderful reflections. Just to briefly summarize what you guys mentioned, the role of the government is important in making AgTech affordable for smallholder farmers in the form of developing infrastructures, in the form of creating a more enabling environment through policies, designing national programs to create awareness. The role of the private sector is also very key and important. In fact, you all said private sector should be in the driver's seat. Venkat kept on emphasizing the need for aggregation if we want to talk about affordability for smallholder farmers. Abraham mentioned multi-stakeholder collaboration. It's not something that can only be done by the private sector or one stakeholder only, and also the need to integrate financial institutions, particularly microfinances that largely operate with smallholder farmers. So thank you so much for all these wonderful views and reflections you've shared on these topics. So now we've reached the question and answer session. I think we have around 20 minutes to address the questions we've received so far. Even before the event, we've already received a couple of questions via email. So we'll start with those and then we'll carry on with the questions we've been getting through the chat box. So I will pose the questions individually. Dr. Venkat, the questions that are more directed to you and SourceTrace are most AgTech technologies, they need internet access, smartphone, literacy levels. So how do you manage to still provide tech services for smallholder farmers, even within these contexts? And what formats, what apps, what solutions have you developed so far? And what has been the affordability for smallholder farmers? Who has been paying for this so far? I mean, you've worked in various countries with so many farmers, so maybe you can share a case or two. Over to you.
Yeah, good question, Raj. So, we build the solutions. Everything is about smallholder farmer agriculture, but the smallholder farmer is not actually using the app in their hand. Okay, that's irony. So the way we do is, as I talked about, we work with so like again I go back, there is neither scale nor sophistication. How do you create it, right? So we work with a large section of there's some very good farmer cooperatives, producer companies, to agri businesses, small and big. We work with some government agencies, financial institutions, and the common denominator is all of them working with groups of farmers. Okay, so the the farmer is not the end user, given their literacy levels and all that. And then right now you need a smartphone, right? The only thing we touch with the farmer is we do send SMS messages to the farmers as an advisory. So that we do that. But we have a very small section of farmer base. They're horticulture, they're a little higher income and higher landholding. We have a farmer app actually farmers could use, but then it just cannot apply that to all the large section of smallholder farmer. So the things to consider is, like I said, literacy levels and this. So we basically, the staff or a field officers or extension or agents of these organizations actually using our applications. And we target, when you're building these applications, there is a most of them are it's a web like a mobile first, right? Because they have to be in the remote areas, so where the touch point of the farmer farm, you need to be able to do either so this field staff going to the fields, either collecting data, disseminating data, providing advisory services. They're doing financial transactions, like they're giving inputs, procurement, payments. So these are all the activities we do, and it's happening at the touch point of the farmer farm. So you could imagine the internet connectivity, as you mentioned, even today, even a country like India, they've considered huge penetration, but you go to a village, in the village center you get, but you just go outskirts of the village, you may not get it. So given that scenario, it is paramount important that these applications work seamlessly in offline mode and online mode. It's a must. So we provide a context in an offline mode that they could operate as if they are connected. So it becomes, that's what I was saying. Building a mobile app sitting in Addis or Boston or Bangalore is very different than you need to take all these things into consideration, right? So it becomes very, very, very ingenious architecture behind to make and provide context. For example, I'll give you, you're in a half the grid and you want to generate a unique number. How do you do it, right? Those are the challenges, right? But we have been working in this. We have one of the best architecture out there to deal with this. And the second thing is the language. So we have to, the local language has to be supported on mobile, and we support about 16, 17 different languages on the mobile application. On the web application, we support like 4 or 5 English, French, Spanish, Malagasy, and I think one Hindi language we support on the website. But mobile, we support 17. It becomes very important that you support local language. So those are some of the considerations we take, and so it's a challenging environment. But the only hope is there's a lot of scale. So we hope when we get to the scale, then it will become rewarding. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Venkat. So in the interest of time, I will not summarize now. I will go into the next question. So it's directed to Jagdish, because in Joytech, you're already providing advisory service for smallholder farmers. So this question is about, providing advisory service for smallholders requires having a comprehensive set of information and data. And in Ethiopia, we don't have that kind of data. Most agricultural information is scattered across different organizations, different institutions, and we don't have, a national framework for data sharing. So in such a context, then how are you able to provide a more comprehensive information and advisory for farmers? And the second question relating to this, well, maybe not relating, but can big agro-food companies encourage access to AgTech for smallholder farmers? Can companies like you, like Joytech, encourage the adoption of technology for smallholder farmers? If yes, then how do you promote this? Jagdish, over to you.
Yeah, integration of the data is very important. So now, as we know that we are in the country where the integration of the data is still behind, but it's the lot of work is going on with the Ethiopian Statistical Agency as well. And to the major concern to the agriculture and the advisory services, what the basic information target that we are adopting is, for example, if we succeed to give weather data information to the farmers, that might also bring quite a big difference. For example, if we have a proper a meteorology center that can disseminate an estimated 8 days or 15 days or 1 month in advance the meteorology or the weather data, that can be disseminated easily so that the farmers can be ready well in advance in order to have a pest infection and pest or disease or something like that. Even from the market side also, we are also trying to see how with the Ministry of Agriculture to see how we are going to make data or market information sharing to the different farmers. Now, the information will not reach to the farmer, as Venkat mentioned. So we need to have some set of infrastructure available. For example, I have been working in 15 years ago, I have been working on one project which works in one village, one PC is there or one device is there, which works hardly 15 minutes or 20 minutes internet connection, get the data downloaded, and that works throughout the day offline, and farmer can come and access the data for the day. Okay, for example, new schemes comes in, for example, new financial schemes comes in or something like that. So advisory services, I consider as a basic advisory services should be disseminated to the farmers with the available infrastructure. And the available infrastructure is just like as in the old days, the old newspaper is in the central place, so everybody go and access the newspaper. So something like that, the newspaper is converted to a digital platform nowadays. So we can use farm service center as a central place for one village or one kabale or one orada, so that the people can come a marketplace, where the marketplace is there. There is a notice board, a digital notice board is available, where you can access, you can get it like a notice board, you can get an prior information like in weather, market information, financial schemes, or something new, new product launches, new product comes in, or something. So these are the things that we are trying to also penetrate through private sector to our capacity in collaboration, because we cannot bypass the government anyways, because as government should also play a very important role, and the development agents are also playing can also play a very important role to disseminate the information, because this is the structure that existing agriculture extension system has been developed in Ethiopia, and we don't need to invent something new. With the existing setup, we wanted to mount our technology and our ultimate goal. One of the project that enterprise partner, it's a British funded project that was we have implemented with the development agent based project, and it was very effective. So sustainability will bring by that way, and not directly to the farmers. It will take time, as Abraham mentioned, but we are not so far. We are heading forward. So let's take pilot project, like at least for the development agents, and one step to go, and the next step will be to the farmers. So I strongly believe that this is the way forward, that we have to take the dissemination of the information, taking it forward with the digital platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagdish. The third question is for Abraham, Larsha. So it's a couple of questions combined together. So is Larsha compatible with the literacy level of the rural farmers we have in Ethiopia? Is it compatible with the extension system we have at the moment? What is the role of development agents in the rollout of this platform? And if farmers had to pay, for example, how much would they be paying to use the Larsha app? And what is the interest level of actors in Ethiopia for the use of AgTech technologies? And one question we just received is also, I mean, you talked about reaching smallholder farmers, but can Larsha also provide service for like commercial or medium level type of farmers? Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Raj. I think regarding the literacy rate, how compatible it's with the literacy rate of rural areas, I think some of the things that we consider, one is language. So Larsha is not only a mobile app, it's a platform. It contains a mobile application, a 7860 short code. It's both SMS and voice, and also a Larsha agent. So it's combining the online, the offline, and the human approach. And with that, we considered language, understanding the mother tongue of the language. We included Amharic, Afan Oromo, and English in our all platform, so farmers can easily interact. But also, as Dr. Venkat said, we are not expecting farmers to download the mobile application to use. Rather, there is a bridge. For the lack of better term, we are calling them the Larsha agent, but we see them as agripreneurs, the future enterprise of the Ethiopian agriculture. So they connect the smallholder farmer with the platform. So with that, we are just trying to consider the literacy. I think looking at the impact, so far we onboarded 10 farm service centers to provide input, also 32 mechanization service providers to provide mechanization service, and 250 development agents. So the role of this development agent is in Ethiopia and agriculture, the extension system is more or less a public domain. The extension system is dominated by government. But recently, from that public extension, it's heading to the pluralistic extension system, where private sectors are allowed also to play some role in providing extension service to smallholder farmers. So this, we know, without considering some say 65,000, sometimes you hit 70,000 development agents. This is a huge number. This is a huge workforce. So by taking them aside, we can't be successful in AgTech. So we consider this development agent as part of our platform, but they don't do commercial transaction. It's only Larsha agent that do transaction with farm input and mechanization. The development agent will only access a crop extension and agroclimate advisory to make their daily job easy. The other is, I mean, in terms of, I mentioned earlier in the business model, as a private sector, we want to build a sustainable business model, but also we understand the affordability issue from a farmer side. So we took experience from other countries, and we learned it in most countries, such a platform charges from 12% to 17% as a service charge. But in our case, the minimum is 5 and the maximum is 8. So as an entry modality, so every farmer will pay that 5 to 8% of a transaction. But as Jackie said, we also encourage aggregation to lower a cost, of a farmer. The last question is interest from other actors. We are very thankful to our partners and also other stakeholders, including IFC. We are so much, elevated by interest coming from different actors. Even we are surprised by support that we received from Ministry of Agriculture, from federal level to Warada level. As a startup, as a private sector coming with AgTech to smallholder farmer, I think we wouldn't be here unless support received and interest coming from different actors.
Okay, Abraham. One question you didn't answer. Do you also provide service for commercial and larger scale farms, or are you only focused on supporting smallholder farmers?
Yes, we serve both. Just to mention, sorry, Mr. Raj, we work currently on 4 crops: wheat, malt barley, faba bean, and potato. But because of demand coming from a commercial farmer, recently we are now expanding to cotton and coffee, because some commercial farmers showed interest to use Lersha as a platform. Either they work in contract farming, or some of them, they also have big farms. So we serve both, but so far our focus was mainly on smallholder farmer. So far, I think we have served about 6,800 smallholder farmer, either with farm input, either with mechanization or agroclimate advisory.
Okay, thank you very much, Abraham. Thank you all 3 panelists. So it looks like we will be finishing in 4 minutes time. So what I will do is I will give each of you less than a minute for last words. I mean, maybe not words, but maybe 1 sentence or 2. So please contain it within less than a minute. Dr. Venkat, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think, we are at a very interesting time, how the technologies that, the penetration of mobile, some of the advances in remote sensing and AI, ML, and, labeling technologies, have a lot to offer. On the other hand, there is, this COVID only could, I know it impacted adversely so many people, and then the agriculture value chains, food, it's being essential, but it's also affected, so many ways. And so the food safety and traceability has also been brought to really forefront. So we are at a, one side these advances in technologies, another side the conscious consumer and the need for providing ethical and safe and food to everybody. And also another big thing is we need to produce more food to meet the demands of a growing population. So all of these have a tremendous transformation we will be seeing, and the technology is going to play a vital role in the coming next 10 to 20 years. So it will be a very interesting time. So
thank you, Dr. Venkat. Jagdish, less than 1 minute, last words. You're on mute, we can't hear you.
We are going to be the witness for the life-changing process in the developing country here, and we are talking about taking the technology from taking a farmer, a small holding farmer, from conventional farming, from traditional farming to an advanced farming. So with the help of the technology, I think this is the era that we are talking about, the next era that we are talking about, a technology era, and we all of us should put all our efforts step by step. It's not going to be happening one day, one overnight results, but the steps has to be taken forward. And I strongly believe that in collaboration with the technology, like Venkat has his company, and there are different companies, Abraham is there, and IFC has a financial support and making us linkages together. So thank you very much, IFC and Mr. Raj and team over there. to make us all up together from 3 different sectors to bring together to make the things audible and to exchange the ideas, because I see a lot of questions and answers in the text box also. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jagdish. Abraham, last words before we close.
Thank you so much. I think so far we have learned that everyone has a role, so that multi-stakeholder collaboration is very important. And from innovator and developer side, inclusive business model is more profitable than a standalone service. One-stop digital service type of modality works better in the Ethiopian and in more world context. And also patient is very important. With the smallholder farmers, we need to take time to develop, to disseminate, to adopt, and to market the technology. It is not a one go. There is no silver bullet regarding AgTech solution to smallholder farmers. And as always we say in our office, Lersha is trying to make agriculture easy for everyone. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you, all our participants. Thank you for taking the time to be with us for this 1 hour. This was indeed a very interesting session. We had a number of questions coming in, but we weren't able to address all of them, although we tried our best. So thank you so much. Wherever you are, please keep the discussion going. This is a very timely and interesting topic. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. For those of you who are still around, thank you. The survey will actually pop up on your screen when you exit the Zoom. So please exit the Zoom webinar in order to see the survey. Sorry for the misinformation initially.